The old folks whispered about them. Elves, not the merry dancing kind. These were creatures of shadow. Their eyes glowed with an eerie inner light. Their laughter sounded like breaking bones. They lived in the whispering woods, far from the light of day. They craved dreams, not the sweet dreams of children. They yearned for the raw, unfiltered emotions that swirled within. Fear, despair, anger. These were the delicacies of the nightmare elves. Each night, as the moon climbed high, the elves would creep from their shadowy realm. They rode on the backs of giant moths, their wings like shrouds against the moon. Their destination, the minds of sleeping children. The elves carried pouches of shimmering dust, dream dust. They sprinkled it over the faces of sleeping children. The dust smelled of mildew and decay, a sickly sweet aroma that clung to the back of the throat. As the dust settled, it seeped into the children's minds.
The dreams began innocently enough, a warm fire, a loving pet.
But then the dream dust would weave its dark magic. The fire would roar out of control, consuming everything in sight. The loving pet would transform into a snarling beast, its teeth bared in a menacing growl. The children would toss and turn in their sleep, their breath coming in ragged gasps. But they were trapped, unable to escape the terror unfolding within their minds. Deep within the whispering woods, in a cavern lit by phosphorescent fungi, stood the nightmare loom. This eerie place was hidden from the world, known only to those who dared to seek it. It was an immense contraption of bone and sinew, powered by the screams of tormented children. The very air around it seemed to hum with their agony. Here the elves wove the stolen dreams into tapestries of horror. Their nimble fingers moved with a sinister grace, creating nightmares from the essence of innocence. Each thread on the loom was a strand of a stolen dream, pulsating with raw emotion. The threads glowed with an eerie light, each color representing a different kind of suffering. Fear was a sickly yellow. Sadness, a deep indigo, anger, a fiery red. These emotions were woven together to create a tapestry of pure dread. The elves wove with feverish intensity, their eyes gleaming with malevolent delight. They took pleasure in their dark craft, each stitch a testament to their cruelty. As the tapestries grew, they seemed to writhe and pulse with a life of their own. The patterns shifted and changed, as if the nightmares were trying to escape. Images of terror flickered across their surface, monstrous creatures, shadowy figures, and landscapes of despair. Each image was a fragment of a stolen dream, twisted into something horrifying. These tapestries were more than just art. They were weapons, weapons of fear and despair, designed to break the spirit of anyone who gazed upon them. The elves used the tapestries to torment their victims long after the dreams had faded. They hung the tapestries in the shadowy recesses of the children's minds. There, the nightmares lingered, casting a pall over their waking hours.
Children, once so full of life and laughter, became withdrawn and fearful. They refused to sleep, dreading the nightly visitations of the nightmare elves.
Their eyes, once bright and sparkling, now held a haunted, hollow look. The laughter of children, once a symphony of joy, was replaced by a chilling silence. The nightmare elves had stolen something precious. They had stolen the innocence of childhood. Section 5. The Price of Sleep. The elves revelled in the terror they inflicted. They fed on the fear, the despair, the anger. It sustained them, made them stronger. The more children they tormented, the more powerful they became. The whispering woods grew darker, more menacing. The air crackled with negative energy. The trees twisted and contorted, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The once beautiful forest had become a reflection of the elves' twisted souls. Word of the nightmare elves spread, carried on the wind to distant lands. Parents whispered warnings to their children. Be good, they'd say, or the nightmare elves will come for you. Section 6. A Kingdom of Fear. The nightmare elves had created a kingdom of fear, a realm where their every whim was law, and their subjects lived in constant dread. They ruled with an iron fist, their hearts cold and unyielding, showing no mercy to those who dared to defy them. They delighted in the suffering of others, their laughter echoing through the whispering woods like a curse, a haunting reminder of their cruelty. Within the depths of their fortress, a grand and terrible castle of obsidian and bone, the Nightmare King plotted and schemed, his mind always turning with dark plans.
He was a creature of pure malice, his heart as black as the void, and his soul consumed by darkness. He coveted the dreams of all children, and he would stop at nothing to obtain them, feeding on their innocence to fuel his power. His queen, a creature of ethereal beauty and chilling cruelty, sat at his side, her presence as cold as ice. Her eyes, cold and calculating, saw into the hearts of men, discerning their deepest fears and desires. She craved power, and she knew that fear was the key, using it to manipulate and control those around her, ensuring her reign was unchallenged.
Section 7. The Elf Queen's Decree. One night as the moon hung heavy in the sky, casting its eerie shadows upon the land, the Elf Queen, seated on her bone throne, issued a decree that would change the fate of many. She desired a new gown, one that would be the envy of all, a gown unlike any other, imbued with a dark, magical aura. It was to be woven from the most terrifying nightmares, the kind that haunt the deepest corners of the mind, creating a tapestry of fear and despair that would be unmatched in its horror.
The nightmare elves scurried to obey, their dark clothing blending with the shadows, their hearts filled with a mixture of terror and anticipation, knowing the gravity of their task. They knew the price of failure was too great to bear.
They ventured into the minds of the bravest warriors, the most righteous priests and the most innocent children, seeking the darkest nightmares imaginable, those that would make even the bravest shudder. The loom groaned and shuddered as they wove the stolen nightmares into the fabric of the gown, each thread pulsating with dark energy. The air crackled with negative energy, a palpable sense of dread filling the room. The very walls of the fortress seemed to weep with despair, as if they too felt the weight of the dark magic being woven within. Section 8. A Glimmer of Hope. Unbeknownst to the nightmare elves, a glimmer of hope remained. There were those who whispered of an ancient prophecy, a prophecy that spoke of a woman who would rise to challenge the elves' reign.
This woman, the prophecy foretold, would possess a heart of pure light, a light that could banish even the darkest shadows. She would wield a weapon of love and compassion, a weapon that could break the elves' hold on the children's minds.
Some dismissed the prophecy as mere folklore, a fairy tale meant to comfort the fearful. But others clung to it with desperate hope, believing that even in the darkest of times, light would find a way. Section 9. The Live Elf Dress. The night of the Elf Queen's grand ball arrived. The nightmare elves, adorned in their finest silks and jewels, trembled before their queen. She stood before them, draped in the gown of nightmares.
The gown writhed and pulsed with a life of its own. Images of terror flickered across its surface, monstrous creatures, shadowy figures, and landscapes of despair. The gown seemed to drain the light from the room, casting long, menacing shadows.
The nightmare elves gasped. The gown was more terrifying, more magnificent than they could have imagined. The Elf Queen smiled, a cruel, predatory smile that sent shivers down their spines. Section 10. The Woman and the Nightmares. As the elf queen revelled in her dark triumph, a figure emerged from the shadows. A woman. She was not adorned in silks or jewels, but in simple robes. Yet she radiated an aura of power, of unwavering courage.
In her hands, she held a small, unassuming object. A music box. As she opened it, a melody filled the air, a melody of such purity, such love, that it seemed to banish the shadows from the room.
The nightmare elves cowered, their power waning in the presence of such light. The elf queen's smile faltered, a flicker of fear crossing her cold eyes. The woman had arrived. The prophecy was about to unfold.